This is NDTV, and you're watching NDTV Prime.
What does it take to be a woman founder in India? India, a country where barely 6% of enterprises are now being founded by women. Even as, ironically, we're talking about how this is the one country where startups are buzzing, where entrepreneurship is buzzing. So why aren't we seeing a reversal of those dismal numbers? Well, we thought, who better to explain to us what's happening and how they see the startup space around them, except two very, very successful, candid and extremely talented women. It's my great pleasure to welcome on the program two people who we've been chasing for weeks, let me underscore, and have finally managed to get them together on the platform today. A very warm welcome to Shuchi Mukherjee, founder and CEO of LimeRoad. This is an e-com platform for lifestyle and fashion products. Thanks very much, Shuchi, for coming in. Also, Shradha Sharma, founder Your Story, an online media platform for startups and entrepreneurs-related stories and news. Thanks, Shradha, also for taking our time to do this today. We'll get started right away. Now, when people throw these numbers around, Shuchi, 6% of startups only founded by women, and where are the women, and, all the challenges that women face. What do these numbers sort of mean to you when you look at these headlines? What's the first thing that comes to mind?
Look, the first thing that comes to mind is that we're heavily under-indexed. I look around me and, you think about all the funding that's gone into the segment, into Indian startups in the last 5 years. And there are very, very few, and I think you can count them on your fingertips. The number of people who managed to successfully raise more than, let's call it $5 million, right? And it takes a lot more to build large established companies. But the question then is that, is it an India-specific thing, or is this happening globally as well? And when you go into Silicon Valley, I think the Valley numbers are better than India, but it's not at par either, right? So the fundamental question that I ask myself is just this one thing, which is, there are a lot of talented women. There are a lot of women who enter the education space and do extremely well at class 12, even in the entrance exam. Where are the women? And what can we do to bring more of these women out and get them into this entrepreneurial space? So that's the only question I ask when I see these numbers.
Right. Shradha, where are the women? Now, that's a question that's been asked over and over again. Shuchi raises the point again, but there's no dearth of talented women in India. We're talking about the numbers. We're talking about a country that's changing, women at par. Yes, of course, when we look at the tech space, perhaps we could do with more women in our top tech institutions. But anyway, that doesn't sort of stop women from stepping up to the challenge. There are enough stories out there. We've been speaking to a whole host of women, successful women entrepreneurs who've said how when they went out there looking for funding, they were told things like, your idea is too ambitious. Why don't you start by, say, selling soap? That's one of the stories that we were told. Another one was, you're going to have children and they're going to be in-laws, and, how are you going to sort of override these bumps along the road, as it were? Do you believe that at the end of the day, it's still all about your talent and an individual, and gender doesn't really take center stage?
Difficult to say that gender does not take center stage, but increasingly in the last 8 years that I've been tracking the space, it is definitely changing. And I think today, when you go with with an idea which has merit, I think investors, people who put in money are looking at great ideas, and I think they're not necessarily looking at gender. The question is, how many are going with interesting ideas? How many are building interesting stuff? And I think it's a reflection, it's a fundamental reflection of our society that women, study, and in technical institutes, if you go and see, some outstanding women are studying, and what happens between their studies in engineering colleges, IIMs, and all these places, to the point where they start up or they start working in professional life, and there is a break which is not only happens in entrepreneurship, but it happens in work life, in corporate lives, in media, in all the industries.
So it could be anyone's story anywhere, basically.
We need to look at.
Right.
Yes.
Shuchi, this is also a time where women entrepreneurs like all other entrepreneurs, but women entrepreneurs in particular have been in focus. We've seen the government there talk about it time and time again. In the budget again, women entrepreneurs coming up and all of that. Do you believe that this is the kind of fillip that we need? Like, how do you see it? Do we need more of what we are seeing?
Yeah. So I think I agree with Shradha that I think we're in an India today where, frankly, if there was a woman who stood up and wanted to build something that made sense, irrespective of gender, I think there is stuff that can be funded, irrespective of gender. I think I completely agree. I think the problem is the top of the funnel where women are not doing it. And I think the fundamental problem with India is, and I think the fundamental opportunity and problem, right? So there are two things that really surprise me. So one is, in India, we naturally have natural infrastructure available. We have parents and in-laws that typically, relative to the West, live in close proximity. There should be infrastructure, because the single biggest thing that gets in the way of women stepping up or actually getting women to step out is childbirth, and second is social stuff around, right? And so I think on the one hand I say that, hey, you know, there is this huge opportunity because unlike the West, our cultural fabric allows us to fall back on family. On the other side, I find that, you know, I think the reason women, the one thing, I mean, I think there's a lot of stuff, good stuff happening, but the one thing that women need to get is a fillip from, or a push or a support from that immediate circle. I'll give you a simple example. What if every school in the country pledged not to have a coffee morning at 11 o'clock or a PT at 11 o'clock? Because you know what? A woman cannot participate if she's running her own business, right?
Or you need to put everything, sort of juggle your
that's
schedule
right,
around in a way.
Right. So it just makes it doubly hard. So what I think is, fundamentally, we need a couple of things which are just really practical that just enables the woman to get out. And I think with internet and capital, you can do a lot of stuff from home itself.
Shradha, also, if we were to just step back from being a woman for a moment and talk about the days when you had this idea for your story and how you were going about it, you've spoken quite candidly about the time on how raising capital was one big challenge. Now, for all those who are watching, and we've got people with different opinions. Most people write in to say that raising capital is a big problem. There are some others with different views that I know that Shuchi would agree with. But if we were just to talk about capital with you, what do you believe was the most challenging aspect of that for you personally?
I think one of the areas, one of the key things, and I think it's again a reflection of the ecosystem, is that capital raising comes when you have an idea which is extremely scalable and non-linear and huge, humongous scale you can talk about. Could I talk about that kind of scale in the early years? No. Last year when I knew that, you know, when I had this whole thing that, okay, I can, you know, talk about this non-linear scale and this is the way I can go ahead and do that, I made a few phone calls and to my surprise, a very amazing, extraordinary woman investor, I called her and she said yes, and she went ahead, and I don't think so in the decision she made to invest in me, it was any gender, like, okay, let me support because she's a woman. She's a very strong woman, so she went ahead and believed in the so just to sum up, what I'm saying is that today, and especially for women, when you are pitching your idea, you know, one thing which investors look at more than your gender and anything else is like, hey, do you have that big idea, that non-linear, large, you know, billion-dollar idea, and that's what you need to pitch at to get the money.
Right. I think talking about, sorry, I think just talking about investors, I just come to you, Shuchi, it's just that they are sort of shrewd, intelligent people, and they'll sort of put their money on the winning horse. I don't think gender for an investor would really be a big deal. Come on, Shuchi, and then...
so I was just going to say that actually, you know what, I think what we should do is bifurcate, and when we think of funding, we should think of funding as two separate things, the two scales of funding. One is when you're trying to build something really large. It naturally can attract a particular kind of talent, a particular kind of capital. And then there is other, I mean, there could be micro industries across the country in millions coming out, where the funding requirement does not need a blue chip VC.
I see.
And so you need, so the question is, how
who do you need to go after?
How
Right,
entrenched is
right.
that capital?
Right.
And I think that is where, that is a fundamental weakness.
Right.
And so to that extent, if we had that capital, which was about giving somebody 50,000 rupees, you know, a couple of crores,
Right.
you know, that range, where people could make good decisions and build small businesses.
Is that where mentorship comes in? Who's sort of hand-holding you and saying, don't go after the big guys yet? Is that a space that we're not looking at closely?
I think role models and mentors make a huge difference, and they are not accessible in general to most people.
Right.
So I think for a lot of women, you know, having access to mentorship that just says that, hey, you don't have to go after a venture capital fund, but here are, you know, 10 other opportunities to raise capital, and that enables you not to think of $1 billion of, you know, market cap.
Which might be a better fit for you
That's
at this
right,
moment. Shradha,
that's
would you agree?
You know, see, in my role every day, I'm meeting 10, 15, 20 people, and you start taking clues and you know, guidance from everyone whom you're talking to. So somewhere, you know, it will be wrong for me to say that I didn't, because last 8 years, 24,000 entrepreneurs, like, there have been a lot of people to learn and get advice from. I would say, you know, but to your question, I would say for many women, I think there are two things which I would say as a woman, because that's one thing I've worked on, is one is that we are, you know, we are very critical of our own selves, our own plans, and that's the difference I have seen in the ecosystem, where I see men coming with great confidence, with great clarity in terms of, hey, this is my valuation, this is the big thing. A woman will do extraordinary thing, but they will not talk about it, or maybe they will not have that kind of a surety that, hey, I'm killing the world, or I'm just building the next unicorn. And second thing is, you know, as far as mentors are concerned, I think one is mentors coming. Second is very, very actively, like a psycho, very crazily going after and chasing mentors. And I think the more you knock, you will get the doors opened, and you will get people to talk to you. And I think women need to do it more proactively.
Right. I want to talk to you, Shuchi, a bit about building a team. Because while one group of people always says that, you know, going after capital or getting capital and getting started is a big thing, there's another who says that, you know, you can get all the capital that you want, but if you don't have the right team, then there's going to be an implosion somewhere along the way.
So I think it's not a trade-off. You need the capital, you need the team. But on teams, one thing that matters the most is having the confidence to go after folks who may be older than you, more experienced, you know, maybe completely different to you, but to be able to then go and say, that's the person I want on my team. And just have the conviction and bring that person on board. I think it's a little bit, I think from what I see around me, I think on average men, because maybe more men are doing it, but men seem to do a better job than women. But I think having the conviction.
At executing their roles.
That's right. No, at doing what it takes.
Going after the people that they want.
Going after what you think is the most aspirational candidate.
Right. Why do you think that's happening?
I think it is linked to, I agree with Shradha, there is an underpinning link to, I don't know, maybe it's confidence, but I tell you, even today, I mean, I've built stuff all my life. Even today, if I go into an unknown environment, people will ask my husband what he does, and they will never ask me what I do. When I first came back from England to start LimeRoad, the CA company I went to see highly recommended. The gentleman looked at me and said, you're a woman, you're coming back from England, and are you nuts? You're trying to build a business here? Go back to England. Do you know how hard it is?